You or someone you love is a high-achieving executive or entrepreneur. Others expect you to have it all together all the time. But the truth is this: it takes a tremendous amount of energy and hard work. You sacrifice a lot and are wondering if it's really worth it. People make changes for one of two reasons: from the rock bottom of desperation, or from a point of inspiration. Welcome to Season 2 of our LinkedIn Live series, where we will spend the next 6 episodes focusing on a vital yet often overlooked aspect of leadership and personal development, unblocking and harnessing the flow state. We'll explore how tapping into this state can significantly amplify your potential as a leader and bring a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment to the role. Tune in as we explore heart-coherent leadership, a transformative approach that aligns emotional intelligence with decision-making. Discover how it elevates your leadership and transforms your organizational culture into a more dynamic, responsive, and innovative environment. Every week on Freedom Flow Fridays, join Dr. Anna Davies, Dr. Amanda A. Carpenter, and myself, Suzette West, as we expand the conversation, delving deeper into the realm of heart-coherent leadership and the transformative power of flow. We invite you to join us as we unblock the flow to your freedom, week by week. Hello, hello, everybody. We're back.
Hello.
Welcome to Freedom Flow Fridays. I'm Suzette West, and welcome to episode 3 of 6. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Anna Davies. Amanda won't be joining us today, but she will be back next week. However, in this segment, we're going to be diving into a topic that is both crucial and challenging: understanding why change initiatives fail. From the nuances of strategy formation to the complexities of communication and cultural alignment, our conversation aims to unravel the intricate web of factors that can derail even the most well-intentioned change initiatives. So we're going to dissect these issues and seek out the lessons they hold for future initiatives. So let's begin our conversation. And the way we're going to start out this week's conversation is I'm just going to go over a few things I found in the news. This was an NPR article called "A Failed Hotel Shelter Program Left Nearly 300 People Scrambling for Housing. Who's to Blame?" So I'm going to read an excerpt from this article, and I will be leaving links to these articles in the comments, so check them out when you get a chance if you're interested. So I'm quoting from the article. "With the help of $1 million FEMA grant, the Lived Experience Coalition, a group advocating for policy solutions to homelessness, rolled out a program last winter that worked directly with unhoused people. The program moved them into 4 hotel shelters across King County and Tacoma. But shortly after its launch, the program ran into financial trouble. The Lived Experience Coalition overspent by nearly $1 million, according to an independent audit funded by local philanthropic organizations, and ultimately collapsed, leaving residents of those hotels in limbo. The audit, for which a draft report was released last week, found that the Lived Experience Coalition could never have received federal money in the first place, and found that mistrust and poor communication between the organization and its partners led to its demise. And then here's one from King County Outreach Program. This one, and it could be the same. Yeah, this one is in Seattle. So this report is called Homelessness Data Reveals Reasons for Collapse of King County Outreach Program. And then the subtitle says, Shoddy Data Hid Failed State of Homelessness Program Study Shows. This one is Seattle, Washington. A study from the Fix Homelessness Initiative of Discovery Institute reveals the extensive failure of the government to run a now defunct downtown outreach program in Seattle, funded by the region's leading foundations and corporations. It also reveals a lack of transparency from nonprofits receiving millions in contracts from King County to address homelessness. So those are just two examples of some failed initiatives. I mean, there's failed leadership initiatives like this all over. Like, you can go all over the world and you can find initiatives that have failed. So we're going to talk about an article that I found in the Harvard Business blog called 7 Reasons Why Change Management Strategies Fail and How to Avoid Them. So I want to start off by citing a quick paragraph from this article. So what is change management and why do we need it? It says, a change management strategy is a planned methodology that enables leaders to successfully guide an organization through change, while minimizing disruption and the risk of unexpected consequences. And while the goal may be to change the organization, the key to success in most cases lies in the ability to lead people through the change. And let's see. And as we go through there, so it goes on to say, the idea that changing business strategy must be managed is relatively new. Until the late 1940s, generally speaking, most leadership models were relatively straightforward. The boss decided to make a change and his subordinates carried it out. Today, leaders are aware that change is extremely complex and that a heavy-handed top-down approach is rarely successful. Thinking about how to manage change has moved from an academic exercise to the creation of actionable guidelines for business leaders. And this is where we get into the 7 ways that change management strategies fail. Again, I will leave the links to these articles in the comments so you can review later. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to go one by one down the line. We're going to go to the first one. I'll highlight it. I'll read from the article, and then Dr. Davies and I will do a brief talk about it and share our, express our thoughts on this, and we'll just continue like that throughout all 7 of them. Excuse me, not trying to be perfect here, but we're going to go through all 7 reasons and just kind of give a little bit of, share a little bit of insight, speak from the heart. This is about a compassionate conversation. This isn't about pointing fingers, casting blame, but really just exploring and having a compassionate conversation about why, the common reasons why change initiatives fail, so that we can maybe have some context and maybe do a little bit of self-reflection, and maybe do things differently, because that's really how change happens, when we do things differently. How we approach it, though, that's the key. So with that in mind, I'm gonna uncover reason number 1. Reason number 1 is starting with an incomplete or poorly defined strategy. So, from this portion of the article, I quote, without a comprehensive change management strategy, short term tactical decisions can delay or undermine long term results. They can lead your organization down an unexpected or unwanted path and make it more difficult or even impossible to achieve the desired results. The solution: invest significant time and energy into creating a comprehensive change management strategy before starting any change initiative. So let's talk about that real quick, Dr. Davies. And I think you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, one thing, in my doctoral schooling is in order to develop strategies and systems and solutions, you have to understand the problems, the population you're working with. The lack of knowledge of the people you're serving and the problem, you won't be able to come up with a solution. So, understanding the problem, developing solutions, very important. And being flexible and adaptable because things are constantly changing. One of the core issues in doctoral program, what they instill is in order to implement a program and evaluate it, you have to understand the problems, develop a system to and have staff to get the job done, and that was one thing about my doctoral program that I loved was it taught me to problem solve, to evaluate, and using the logic model. Like it's very important that if you don't have all these components, implementation of a program will fail.
Yeah, and so that's, planning your roadmap. Like what is the vision? What are the opportunities? What are the constraints? And then with all of this considered, what is the roadmap? I mean, these are all these are in at the spirit, at the core, these are the three important questions, but to address those questions, it's going to take a lot, right? So, and you touched on one of the reasons that we'll get to later on, but yeah, having a strategy, like having a plan, you don't just go out there and say, oh, I'm going to make change. And then you just go out and do it. And then everything's going to be fine. There's so many moving parts. So that's why the plan is so necessary, because we have to anticipate. While we can't anticipate everything, we
Right.
can anticipate enough to where we can anticipate things that we already know. What are the opportunities that we know of? What are the constraints that we know of? Of course, there's always going to be some stuff that you can't anticipate, and you just do your best through
Correct.
those. But initially, at least having a plan for the things that you know of is a good starting place. Now you can correct me if I'm wrong, or if you have
No,
any
you're
input on that.
Yeah, no, you're correct. And then that's where we talk about theoretical, right? Theories.
Mhm.
Um, you implement them to construct a program. So, with dealing with the homelessness, addiction, and mental health, right? We have to have an integrated approach. Not one theory works. For an example, in my field, I really, when I'm developing solutions, for problems, I'm looking at the theoretical trans theoretical model of the stages of change, and also the ecological model, because ecological model looks at the environmental piece, right, that influences a person,
Mhm.
mindset, right, perception of life, and if someone is struggling and is on the streets and is they're not thriving but surviving, what happens is they go into their survival mode, which
Mhm.
they're just trying to survive. So they're not really using that logical thinking.
Right.
And so that does play a factor on an individual. So I like to, when I'm developing solutions and I'm looking at problems, I do a integrated approach with the theoretical stages of change, the theoretical stages of change in the ecological model. I assess the person. Okay, let's look at their environmental piece. Let's look at, okay, where are they at in their life? What part of the change, they are in the stages of change, and that's where it gives me the tools to help that individual, also to develop solutions too.
Wonderful. So quick note to all anyone who's joining us live. Feel free to leave a comment, and what I'll do is towards the end of this of the hour, I will go over comments and um, towards the end. So right now we're going to focus going through the seven reasons why change initiatives fail, and then at the end we will open up the comment section and I will review some comments. So feel free to leave your comments. Anything you want to say, anything you want to share, just drop them in the comments, and we'll get to them later on. So the next reason for the reason why change initiatives often fail, number 2 is following a strategy that is too rigid and inflexible. And I'll quote from the article. No matter how much thought and planning you put into your strategy, you are unlikely to account for every development. Change, especially large scale change, can take a long time, and the environment and market are also changing around you. Failure to adapt your strategy to unanticipated or sudden developments can render your long term strategy ineffective or, at worst, irrelevant. And then the article cites the solution. Revisit your strategy plan frequently, both before and after unexpected developments occur. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Davies?
Well, you got to
You
be.
by the way, you mentioned this in reason 1. You touched on this briefly about being too rigid. So I just wanted to
Yes, so
point that
you have
out.
to be flexible and adaptable and
Mhm.
resilient, and constantly, I'm constantly going to the drawing board because creativity takes time. Right? You have to be in the fire. You got to be able to work. Okay, this didn't work. Let's go ahead and try this. And be compassionate with yourself, and also be compassionate with your staff. Really important, because it takes a team to address this issue, right? We have to work together. So being adaptable, flexible, and resilient is crucial when you're trying to implement a program.
And I didn't show reason 2, but there's reason 2. Following a strategy that is too rigid and unflexible. Yay. Okay, so um yeah, because this is the way we do it. There's no other way. I mean, come on, does that really work? Does
No,
that really work? Does that
no.
really work? And yet, how many people do that? How many people are so rigid in their what they believe is right that they inflict it, right? They don't change it, and it actually hurts more than helps, and
Okay.
yeah, it's and we see it everywhere. We see it everywhere. Little and small, from
Yeah.
the littlest leadership decision to the biggest leadership decision that affects a lot of people. Okay, so number 3 is lack of effective communications. And I'll read from the article. Leaders often spend a great deal of time communicating about the proposed change in order to gain buy in before beginning the change initiative. However, however, change management Change management strategies often fail or fizzle out when leaders don't communicate enough after initiative is announced. The solution? Create a short, comprehensible explanation of your change strategy. It should be clear, consistent, and constant. Be prepared to repeat that explanation frequently throughout the entire process and with everyone who may be impacted, no matter how remotely. Okay, so let's talk about lack of effective communication. I know you and I have spoke before about this. This is probably
Correct.
this is a big one, right?
Correct.
Because I think When communication breaks down, nothing happens, right?
It does not work, correct.
Yeah.
And then when you have that poor communication style, then people start to get offended or feelings hurt, and then they start building resentments. And that is why that communication comes from within here, right? Perception. So the one of the couple of things that I maintain is, Anna, always use your words as positive. Communicate, coherent heart, not with, I don't communicate when I'm upset or things are bothering me. I have a safeguard. I have things in place before I try to communicate with others. I don't just bam, impulsively speak. I don't. I know myself. I have a system in place. And when someone is, being very negative, I set that boundary. You got to have those healthy boundaries.
Hmm. So in your work, I know that you deal with a variety of cultures. So how do you implement effective communication when you're talking about cross-cultural communication? Like you said, it's so easy to offend sometimes, right? How do you deal
Mhm.
with that? How do you deal with the complexities of intercultural communication?
One, I maintain open mindedness. Two, I find the positive in that person and I learn from it. Three, I do not put my beliefs or expectations on others. And
Hmm.
I communicate with words of encouragement. I never put anybody down, but I lift people up.
That's a big one right there. That's a
Correct.
big one right there. So when you're talking about making changes, systemic changes, like um, that takes time. It's not something that happens overnight, but it talks
No.
about the reason why change initiatives, the common reasons why change initiatives fail is because there isn't this, you have to constantly be communicating, like, where are we, progress updates, how are we doing, like, what is the importance of this, Dr. Davies?
Yes, and it's very important. Training, stay in communication with your team. It's very important, very important. And that's what I do. I do training weekly, and I'm constantly, developing solutions as we go. Like I said, creativity takes time, and having to be present and being with your team is very important.
Yeah, wonderful. I love the wealth of experience that you bring to the conversation. How big is your staff? Can't hear you. Can't hear you. You're muted.
I have quite a good amount, a
Yeah,
good
so
amount of
right
stuff,
around
like about 35.
that's a big team.
Yes,
That's a big team. So communication is crucial to keep everybody on the same page, seeing the same vision, moving towards a common goal, right? Because
correct,
you're out there saving lives. You are addressing homelessness and addiction. You guys have to be together.
correct.
Your team has
Well,
to be
but the
together.
secret sauce of my team is we have passion.
Mm,
We all are on the same page of we are healers and change makers. So we're out there on the battlefield and we love what we do.
I love that. I love that. That is so, so crucial. That passion, that love for the work that you do. Because it means you push through the tough times because you know that they're coming and you just stick together. This is where communication is critical. So that was number 3. So we're gonna get to number 4 now. Reason number 4 is failing to identify and address resistance. And I'm going to read from the article again. Every change initiative is going to encounter resistance. This is true no matter how much you worked to build a guiding coalition before launch, and no matter how well you communicate and create enthusiasm after the launch. In fact, according to Shore, resistance to change is the most common reason why many change initiatives fail. And then they cite the solution. Make a strategic and thoughtful assessment of how your change initiative may impact your employees in order to identify potential resistance from the start. Tailor your communication strategy so that you can address that resistance as soon as or even before it arises. And I'm going to, so let's, you know what? And it touched on, again, the communication piece, right? It touched on reason number 3 as very important because you have to know like who's not on board. You got to have alignment. When you don't have alignment, things slow down, costs go up. If you've ever read the book The Speed of Trust, Stephen M.R. Covey talks about when trust goes down, there's a trust tax, costs go up. So to create trust, we really have to communicate in a heart coherent way. Now, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by a heart coherent way? I mean that your heart and your mind are in a harmonious state where your words are measured, where you're thoughtful in how you express your ideas and what you are saying, that you're careful not to sound like you're casting blame, that you're being critical, that you're judging, because that comes out in your words. Something said in a space of compassion is going to be received differently from those very same words expressed from a place of blame or judgment. The same exact words received 2 different ways. So that's why communication and being heart coherent, being coherent, making sure you're in a state of calm and you're being intentional and you're being mutually understanding. You're coming in with the spirit of wanting to understand, mutual understanding. So anyway, I want to go ahead and turn that over to Dr. Davies. Let's talk about addressing resistance. So when you first stepped into the role of leading your team, you stepped into a ready-made team. How did you deal with, some were really great, some were not so great. So what do you do about addressing resistance?
So one thing when it comes to um, developing solutions and problem solving, the whole team is a part of that decision. Hey, what do you think? I make them feel that their ideas and who they are and what they say is very important. So as a team, we develop a solution together. We bounce the ideas off each other, and we use that effective communication. And when someone feels heard and asked about, oh, what do you think or what should we do? They feel like they're a part of something greater than themselves. So they feel like they belong because they do belong. So
Mhm.
developing and problem solving with your team as a part of it, and then being also that trust and that mutual respect of, okay, well, these are the areas we're struggling in. How can we address these issues? How together as a team, being united, communication, being one, and that is what has been working for me.
Mhm. So how do you address those individuals who they just don't wanna be on board, or maybe they're just there to collect a paycheck?
Well,
What do
now
you what do you do?
I deal with resistance all the time. However, I maintain a compassionate communicate. I'm a compassionate communicator. Like, how can I help you succeed? Like, what areas? So it's all about them when I'm trying to address these issues, and I'm hearing them, and that works. That works. And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, though, they weed themselves out of my team.
Mm.
They go
Yeah.
find job. They go find work. If they can't, you know they find something better, that's fine. Thank you,
Mm.
next. I'm okay with it. But I sit with them. How can I support you? What areas of improvement? I make it so I can be like, tell me what you need to be successful. I am a leader
Mm.
that will not tell someone what to do, but ask them, hey, What areas are you struggling in? How can I be assistance? How can I help you succeed? How can I get you to the next level? How can I get you to your highest self, your highest potential?
That's wonderful. And what advice would you give leaders who are watching? What advice would you give them if they are currently in a change management situation and they're dealing with resistance? Like what is your advice to them to do next in order to, and I won't say give advice because I really hate that, we don't give advice, but like maybe what is an invitation? Like what kind of invitation can you make to those
First
leaders?
off, using positive words with the individual, right? Bringing them in and be like, hey, how are you doing? Communication style, right? Then when you're getting that communication style, say, I hear that you're struggling. How can I help you? It's
Mhm.
about that person. How can I help you?
Mhm.
What areas can I support you in?
Mm. And you've often experienced, just from previous conversations we had, that when you've done this, you turned around potentially uh, contentious uh, teammates, and ultimately they came back to you and thanked you for caring. I remember
Correct.
you, right? That's just
Yeah,
huge. You turned it around. And simply, people just need to know that they're cared about, right? Like if they know you care,
correct.
they're going to open up about what's bothering them. They're going to open up why, what their problem is. And then there's a chance to resolve. Then there's the
Correct.
opportunity to
And
resolve
also
whatever is
setting
going
healthy
on.
boundaries is very important, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and one of those boundary setting tools that, things that I say is, "Hey, I care about you and your family." Um, that's my
Yeah.
priority because if I don't have if my team is having issues outside of, the work, they're they bring it in and I have to make sure there's a healthy boundary.
Mhm.
And basically it's in a compassionate way. Hey, I give you respect, you got to give it back. I
You gotta give
understand, I
it
care
back.
about your life, I care about what's going on outside here. However, when you step into the doors and it's work time, give me that respect and do what is asked, because I give it to you, please return it back. And it works.
That's that's awesome. That is so awesome. I think that's huge. That's an awesome invitation right there. So now we're going to move on to reason number 4. Reason number 4, failing to identify. Oh, sorry. We just did that one. We're not trying to be perfect. Um, okay, so we're at number 5 right now. And yeah, here's number 5. Reason number 5 is there's a disconnect between strategy and culture. And I'm going to read from this one. Change initiatives that work against existing corporate culture will likely be more difficult and less likely to succeed. Demands to change workplace habits and behaviors. Sorry. Demands to change workplace habits and behaviors will be met with distrust and resistance if employees lack trust that the organization will support and reward those changes in the long term. The solution the article cites the solution as ensure that your change management strategy is grounded in a realistic assessment of your organization's culture and vision. And then it goes on to say, even before you begin a change, make certain that senior management and frontline employees alike are aligned on organizational priorities and goals, as well as on reward structures and tolerance for risk. An effective communications plan should include a focus on how your change supports the shared vision for your organization. So, you know, number 5 speaks to what we just spoke to in number 4 and number 3, the resistance, the communication. But culture, that's my wheelhouse. That's where my sweet spot where I like to work is in culture change management. Um, and it really starts with the leader. It really starts with the intention. the intention to commit to coherence based values. So what is coherence based? It means that the heart and the mind, the that they are getting along. To be coherent means that even in tough situations, our resiliency is top priority. Building that resiliency is a top priority. When we build coherence is the state of optimal functioning. When we are highly coherent, we are at our best. We are able to think from the executive thinking part of our brain and not react from the amygdala, which is our reactive brain, where our less than optimal responses come from. So when we keep composure, we maintain access to the prefrontal cortex, the executive faculty of our brain, because this is where all the best responses, this is where all the best solutions, this is where problem solving happens. But when we're reacting, this is where communication breakdown in relationships. This is the way we react to things. This is where it is. This is how are we approaching the problem? How are we leading the change? It's all, where are we responding from? Stress cuts us off from this part of the brain. So that's why it's really important to maintain high coherence so that this part of the brain doesn't get locked out. And that's at the heart of the work that I do. But I want to hear from Dr. Davies. Let's talk about it. Disconnect between strategy and culture.
One thing is, like, I'm gonna always say this: understanding your passion and purpose and why you do what you do. And the secret sauce of my team is we have the passion. So that passion to heal and change and to, that love. And so um, we problem solve, right? And in a compassionate way. We view things differently. When you are trying to lead out of survival mode, right? Bias, closed-mindedness, right? Um, reprimanding people with compassionate style, like, that will shut people down and
Mm-hmm.
make them feel like they're not wanted. Being open, being coherent with your team is, I respect you. I trust that you do. That mutual respect, that mutual communication, that is so important
Mm-hmm.
in a place. Um, but having my team meetings, okay, remember, why are we here today? Asking them. And then that energy of, because I love helping people. I used to be there, I used to do that, and I'm here now giving back to the community. And every time I have a meeting, I inspire, right? I inspire them. We give motivation, interviewing there. Why are we here? Why do we do what we do? Because we have the
Mm-hmm.
passion to make change and we love what we do. It's a
That's huge.
very hard, area of helping people with addiction and homelessness and mental health. But that
Mm-hmm.
compassion, the way we communicate, is so crucial because
Mm-hmm.
that builds trust with the
Right.
community and the people that we help.
Yeah. And I know in a lot of the bigger companies, like the departments, they're like silos. So there's different departments in one company, and each department is their own culture. And so you got all these separate silos happening. Like when we operate in silos, here's this camp over here, here's this camp over here, here's this camp over here. I mean, that's not a cohesive culture, right? Like we know
Right.
there's different departments, but when you're talking about company culture and then all these little silos within that culture, I mean, that's that's a recipe for a lot of clashes to happen, because each silo is going to have their own subculture, and it may or may not align with the greater company vision. You are leading a particular location, and in your culture, you guys are together, you are on a mission, you have a passion for the work that you do. But like in a company wide sense, where you've got different locations, every location has their own culture. When you're talking about a company culture, you're talking about incorporating all the people into, even though they're in different departments, there's an overarching vision. There's an overarching page where everyone is on, even though they're all doing different things. There is Everyone is playing a role within the context of the bigger vision. And when you're talking about silos, everyone's just doing their job, not necessarily in the context of the bigger vision. They're just doing what they think they're supposed to be doing, and that doesn't always translate to the bigger vision. What are your thoughts
And
on
that
that?
depends on, and that would depend on the company, right? It depends on
Mm-hmm.
their what they are. You know, I am honored to be in the business of healing and recovery, and that's a passion, and that is something that is throughout the whole company. You know, like that
Mm-hmm.
passion to heal, that you
Mm-hmm.
know, giving people second chances when,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have that, that is
Right.
implanting that still of hope, of change, and believing in self to make that change. It's I mean, I could do another whole hour on this too. However, um, it's very important to, to know why you do what you do. And once again, without that secret sauce of compassion, you know, um, people will lack that love of going to work. I love
Yeah.
what I do, and I love working.
Yeah, yeah. So when we're talking about company-wide changes, it really is, the onus really is on the leadership team to become a cohesive unit and then roll out that cohesiveness to their
Correct.
respective departments. It's really
Roll
key,
out,
right?
yeah, pass on, roll out that, that passionate goal, mission goal,
Mhm. Mhm.
very important.
And having a plan the leadership team has to be cohesive. It's on them
Correct.
to get that roadmap together, and to understand the opportunities and constraints that are specific in their organization, because we're all different, right? Just like no two people are alike, no two company cultures are alike. They're going to be as individual as individuals, and so
Correct.
the leadership team really needs to take the ball and create the roadmap with all of the particulars taken into consideration, knowing that this kind of change takes time. But it really is. It does lay on the shoulders of the leadership.
Correct.
So, I mean, like, yeah, we could do a whole new segment on this one alone, but we're going to move on to number 6 now. Reason number 6 is setting unrealistic expectations. Okay, so I'm going to read from this one now. One of the major pitfalls when starting a change initiative is to push too hard for too much and too quickly. Rushing through a change increases the risk of mistakes and removes the opportunity to respond appropriately to changing events. And moving too fast can quickly burn out both your team and your organization. Change fatigue can quickly undermine even the most enthusiastic team. The solution: managing expectations, both positive and negative, during a change initiative is just as important as managing the change itself. Remind yourself and your key stakeholders frequently that true change takes time. A well paced solution is much more likely to be effective and successful. Let's see, here we go. And that basically touched on what you mentioned earlier. Creativity takes time. And I know in our conversations, you always say that creativity
But also
takes
being flexible,
time.
adaptable, right? Being
Hmm.
flexible,
Hmm.
adaptable, and resilient. And also, you got to understand the changes that are happening and be able to adapt to them, right? That's where knowledge is power.
Mhm. And adaptation, that's the part that takes time because
Correct.
you got to try something and
Yep.
then see how that works. If it doesn't work, you got to step back.
And
Okay, what
rethink it
happened
again.
here? Let's try it again. Let's figure out something different. Let's go back in and try it again. Okay, how'd it go? I mean, this is a
And
process,
that's where
right?
resiliency and flexibility comes in, right? Like
Exactly.
being
Exactly.
compassionate and not being frustrated with self or nor with your staff. You're developing a solution together.
Mhm.
Hey, maybe let's
Mhm.
try this. Communicating a change in a way to where it involves everyone.
And what happens when you're not resilient trying to make changes?
Oh, stress level goes up, revenue goes down, poor, just poor productivity.
Anxiety goes through the
Oh yeah,
roof.
anxiety and yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Things
That's
go
another,
wrong. Yeah, that's a whole nother, I mean,
that's another thing in itself to where we could do another
yeah.
whole session on.
I kind of feel like, I mean, it seems like all of these seven reasons are interconnected. Like they're really like I'm seeing that these reasons are calling out other reasons from the list. So they're like interconnected.
Correct.
Um, but change fatigue, it's a real thing,
It is
fatigue,
a real thing, but I'm
burnout.
used to it. I'm used to change. That's why, my team and me, we embrace and enjoy change because we've been
Hmm.
dealing with it for so long. It's now a part of our work culture.
Hmm. And when we're talking about resiliency, again, it goes back to the nervous system, the ability to stay highly coherent. And to build up resiliency means a daily practice of applying yourself to build up that resiliency. The more coherent we are, the higher the coherence, the more resilient we are. And it's a daily
Correct.
practice. It requires daily practice. And there's a lot of tools out there that help you build your resiliency. And, a lot of people take this for granted. They're just like, go, 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 go. And don't realize, really, until you start tracking your own coherence, you don't realize when what it feels like to be in a low coherent state. But it happens to the best of us. It can happen moment by moment. And unless we are attuned to it, we end up going past the point of depletion. We deplete our inner battery, and suddenly now we're burnt out. And burnout is what drives anxiety, depression, stress, which anxiety and depression driven by burnout, which is an occupational phenomenon according to the World Health Organization. Depression and anxiety is a $1 trillion global business problem driven by burnout. It's a big problem.
It is a big problem. And
People are
depending on
burning
what
out.
on where you're at, depending on what field you're in, a human life can be at stake
Yeah.
due to
Yeah,
burnout.
especially, yeah, yeah. There's some industries like, for instance, the behavioral health industry. Frontline workers, the people, the case managers, they kind of they when they burn out, a lot of other people's lives are at stake because somebody falls through the cracks, and that's that's
But
when
that's also
we
with
have
the medical field,
loss.
the mental health, we have to
It's
be
everywhere.
present, coherent to be able to catch these warning signs or to catch
Yeah,
these things that say, "Hey, wait a minute here, alarm, there's something going on," and we can address the issue, but burnout is something serious,
it's a very serious problem.
and it
It's a
costs
very serious
companies
problem.
thousands and millions and, a lot of
Well,
money.
yeah, it's they said in the will what is SAMHSA? They expect the behavioral health industry to be short 31,000 workers because of burnout by 2025. That
Yeah.
was what that news said from SAMHSA. World Health Organization puts that $1 trillion global business problem.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's
It
huge.
is very huge.
Yeah. So now we're gonna let's move on to reason number 7. This is our final reason, and that is not creating and celebrating short-term wins. So reading from the excerpt from the article, pushing for change too quickly can lead to burnout, yet not showing positive progress in a timely manner can be equally detrimental. Employees and teams can easily lose momentum and enthusiasm for a change if they feel they aren't making progress. And the more difficult the change is, the more it requires changing behaviors or making sacrifices. The more quickly your teams will lose interest. The solution? Don't wait for wins to emerge naturally from the change management process. Build them into your strategic plan from the start. As you define your short and mid-range goals, include achievable outcomes that will yield visible results. So let's talk about this, celebrating the wins. How do you celebrate the wins with your team?
Well, we we always have, we have meetings throughout the week, and we have a certain meeting that talks about the goodness of a change that was occur with someone that we helped. And I also give incentives, and I little I celebrate little birthdays with staff, but we also we celebrate, oh, this person got a job, or any little accomplishments with the population we serve. We communicate it, and we're like high five, and that motivation that we give each other. And it's we talk about it. Once again, it's communication. We say, hey, this happened, and we'll do a mass email, or we'll say it in one of our meetings, and we'll be like, yeah, and it keeps that passion alive.
Mm-hmm. It's huge. And it comes down to, uh, we're human. We're
Hmm.
human. And as humans, we like to feel valued. We like to feel like what we do matters, like we're contributing to a common vision, to something, a greater cause. And it's one of those things that is talked about in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like you got the bottom where you got your basic, your food, your shelter, and then at the very top, it talks about, self-actualization. Like what are we contributing to make, because it says like when you overcome your own trials and tribulations, when you overcome that journey, like a path of service opens up, and like now you're able to, you know give back. You're able to turn around and help someone else who was going through the same thing, or who is going through the same thing you were, and now you know how you got through it. So what I really love about some of the stories that you share with me is that a lot of your team came to you from being previous clients. So they like totally turned their lives around, and then after they graduated, they like went into training, got certified, and then they came back and worked for you because they like, man, I got to do this work. Like they felt it in
Well,
their
it's
heart.
the lived experience, and how communication, how how you treat others is a reflection of your inner self, right? And so, yes, my that's the secret sauce of my team is they had the lived experience, and they have passion the passion to make change.
Hmm. Yeah, because once you live through a big major life challenge, and you're able to, with help, move through it, and you realize, wow, and you get through it, and then you look back on, wow, I wouldn't have been able to do this by myself. I got through this because I had people supporting me, and now I want to support other people to do the same thing. It's an inspiring thing.
Correct.
It ignites the human spirit. It ignites it to just stand up and do great things because wow, I was able to overcome this, but I didn't do it alone. Now I want to be that for someone else. It's just so inspiring.
It is inspiring, but there's also a that that transformative power, right? Like the people you help, the people you once helped, now are the ones who are the helpers. That means you're building a society, a community of recovery and change, compassionate, understanding. And it's so powerful, so powerful.
Yeah, it's very, very powerful. Well, that was the 7 reasons why initiatives often fail. I feel like when leadership can really take into consideration how they approach strategy, how they approach their planning, how they consider the constraints, how they consider the opportunities, and really seek heart intelligence for the way to navigate, because nothing's perfect. There's always going to be hiccups and wrinkles and snags, and all we can do is the best we can to move through each challenge one step at a time. And I know that heart intelligence is very powerful in that process of moving through the challenges one step at a time. And this is what helped me through the challenges of my life, was to really be connected to my heart intelligence. And like you said, major changes take time. And it's just keeping that faith and that trust that what is the next right thing? As I'm not going to look at the mountain, right? I'm not going to look at Mount Everest and get overwhelmed by this big, huge thing I have to tackle. I'm going to look at, okay, that's Mount Everest. Now, what's the next step from here towards that path up Mount Everest? Like, we're just looking at the next step forward. We're not trying to overthink. We're not trying to overshoot the headlights. That's, staring at Mount Everest, you're going to blow out your nervous system for sure. For sure. Because you cannot do everything at once. Everything is a logical, practical, heart guided sequence. Like, what is the next right step, considering the situation, considering the opportunities, the constraints, the allies, the critics. And that's a whole nother story in and of itself, dealing with critics. You don't stop your life just because your critics are criticizing you. If you do that, it's just, you're never going to get anything done.
And
What is the
I
right
want to,
thing to do?
yeah, but I would like to touch on something about critics. And when you have that inner peace and that higher self-esteem within yourself, you're at peace within yourself, you don't give a damn what anybody says about you. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? I don't care what anybody thinks about me, right? What matters is what I think about myself, my passion, my purpose, and why I'm here.
Yeah.
That is what others think about me is not my problem. That
Mm-hmm.
is theirs, not
That
mine.
is their problem.
And I have a
Yeah.
healthy boundary when it comes to that. I don't
Yep.
I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I don't,
Yep. Yep.
okay? They
I,
haven't
I,
been
I
in my
used to be like
shoes.
that too.
They haven't been in my shoes. They don't know who I am. You know, I love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
What people
Mm-hmm.
want to say bad, that has nothing to do with me. That's their
Yep.
own stuff, and it does not pierce me. I keep on pushing. I keep on going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of the things I struggled early on with too. When I was early on in my healing journey, I had to learn that what other people think about me is none of my business. I had to learn that. But when I finally learned that, it was like the lights, it was an epiphany, because I used to try to, oh, let me make this person happy. Oh, let me make that person happy.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
let me, you know what I'm saying? I used to do that because I just wanted everyone to love me. I wanted everyone to like me. And I just like, I would change. I would do what people wanted or needed me to do to get them to just, care about me. And then it was like, look, I can't be doing that. I got to be true and anchored into who I am and speak from my heart and be the compassionate person I aspire to be. I want to be a change maker. You're not going to make change if you are catering to other people's judgments and criticisms of
Correct.
what you're doing. So I really love that you pointed that out, Dr. Davies. I just want to say, so we are now at the top. We are now at an hour. And we're going to go ahead and close this out with some last thoughts. Let me check and see if we have any comments. No comments. Okay, cool. So, all right. So, what are some last what would you like to say to close out this conversation this week?
Be true to thyself, right? Be compassionate, do no harm to others, use your words as
Mhm.
inspiration and positive. See when there's something negative, there's a lesson to be learned, right? But
Mhm.
maintain that positive outlook on life, right? Because if not, what you're feeling inside will affect the others around you, and that could be ugly.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right then. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and I think on that note, we are going to close this out. Uh, this was a very this was a good conversation. We just kind of touched on the 7 reasons, and they were all interrelated. Hopefully the audience finds value in this, and I'm looking forward to future conversations.
Yep.
So yeah, thank you
All right.
for joining us. Thank you for joining us, everybody out there watching us on the replay. Thank you for your attention, and yeah, until next week, we
All
will
right.
close out.
Bye.
Bye.